All right, welcome back. Income inequality and income distribution. So we're going to learn some things about income inequality, how it's measured, and types of governmental anti-poverty programs. All right, so we have a few terms. We're going to go through some of these pretty quickly. We have something called the welfare state. This is a system in which the government takes responsibility for the welfare of its citizens, often in an economic sort of way. Poverty threshold. This is where the annual income below which a family is officially considered poor. So if you're below the poverty threshold, you are considered poor in the United States. You have 2017 numbers there for you. So you have a 4-person household. That number is $24,600 for the continental United States, and so on and so forth. The poverty rate refers to the percentage of the population with incomes below the poverty threshold. So below that poverty line, it's also referred to as, we have a percentage of the population that has incomes below that number. And so you can again see these numbers here since the last, looking at the last 55 years or so. You see that there is a steep decline, and then it has been relatively steady between about 12 to 15% or so for much of the last 40-45 years. Ticks up and down. And then you have the light blue is representing those that are at least 50% below, or they're below half of what the federal poverty level is. So extremely poor, and that's about 5% of the population. All right, we have a group of people that are known as the working poor. These are workers, hence working, workers whose income falls at or below the poverty threshold. So again, these aren't really new concepts or anything like that, just kind of defining the terms here. We have a term that is the mean household income. This is a terrible definition of that. Mean household income as the average income, because obviously it's an average, but what kind of average? Well, with mean household income, we don't really look at this one, because this is if we added up all of the household incomes in the United States and then divide them by the number of people who earned, or the number of households, we would come out with a mean household income. However, that's going to be significantly skewed due to outliers who are earning millions and millions, and some even in the billions of dollars in single years. So mean household income is not going to be a useful statistic to us. On the other hand, median household income will, because this is telling us the income of the household in the middle, or the 50th percentile of the income distribution. So in other words, this is telling us that half of Americans make more than this number per year, and half of Americans make less than this number per year. You have, to interpret this chart, something that really would be able to do better in macro, you have a blue and a red line. The red are nominal dollars, nominal income. That one isn't really the one to pay attention to, because that one is affected by inflation. So the fact that people make nominally more money today than in the year 2000 doesn't really mean anything. The blue one is the real income, and it's seasonally adjusted, so that's going to be the much better number. And what you see there is that it has been very, well, I shouldn't say it's been very constant. There have been fluctuations. You see the Great Recession there is that dark gray strip from 08 and 09, and it took a while for it to recover. But basically we are back to where it has been for most of the last 15 years, which is a real income of about $57,000 per household. That's the median. Again, half of Americans making more than that. About half of American households make less than that. But that blue number is what you'd really want to look at. So we're pretty much right back to where we were before the recession and where we were at the end of the last business cycle in 2000-2001. All right, we have this term Gini coefficient, and this is an important number. It's a number that oftentimes people who look at income inequality will tout this number. And what it is it's a number that summarizes a country's level of income inequality based on how unequally income is distributed across the quintiles. So in other words, we break everybody up and we assign them a quintile. So the lowest 20%, then from 21 to 40%, from 41 to 60%, 61 to 80%, and then 81 to 100%. So we have 5 quintiles. And essentially we have, so the top fifth, the bottom fifth, and then the middle 60%. And the idea here is that we're looking at how much of the country's income does each quintile possess. So if we were to look at in the top 20%, the top quintile, how much of the United States, or any country for that matter, how much of the total income for that nation is held by the top quintile, how much of it is held by the bottom quintile, and how much is held by the middle quintiles. The higher the number for the Gini coefficient, that means that it is more unequal. So this is going to be a number from 0 to 1, and you can see here that the United States, we are somewhere in the range of 0.45 to 0.49. Perhaps in class or on a future video one day I can make, and we can go into a little bit more detail about this concept and look at the United States a little bit more closely and what this means. But really, for this class, all your knowledge needs to be is what its purpose is, and that higher values are going to be noting that a country has more unequal distribution of income. So if you do look at this map, you'll see, like Canada, for instance, they have less income inequality than we do in the United States. In fact, many of the developed countries in the world do. South America tends to be more unequal, but most of Western Europe, certainly the Baltic, a lot of developed countries are going to have less income inequality, and that's a good conversation that can be had. The Lorenz curve is essentially trying to do the same thing. This is a graphical representation or graphical display of the distribution of income. In this case, you could change the x-axis. Instead of it being a percentage of income, we could have that be a percentage of wealth. The idea here is that you have this line of perfect equality, so that's what it would look like. You'd have this perfectly sloping 45-degree angle, basically. If we had a perfect income equality, the further that curve bends away is going to mean that there is more inequality. The closer that Lorenz curve hugs the line of equality, that's going to be less equality. Okay. Now, the United States has several types of U.S. or of anti-poverty programs. This little chart here is actually important. It shows you the results of those across a nice significant time span of about 45 years or so. And it's showing you that poverty rates in the United States have been pretty constant without taxes. So this is the green, the top number is before we account for taxes and benefits and welfare transfer programs. About 27-28% of the population would be below the poverty rate. However, once we account for paying taxes and people receiving benefits, that poverty rate drops to about 16% in the year of 2011, and we saw the other one, so it's about somewhere between 14 to 16% typically in the United States after we take into account the taxes and benefits. So what are these benefits? Well, some of them are known as means-tested programs. Means-tested programs are available only to individuals or families whose income falls below a certain level. So in other words, you have to qualify, and the way you qualify is by having low income. So Medicaid, food stamps, SSI, supplemental security income, and Section 8 or subsidized housing, these are all means-tested programs, so you only get it if you qualify because of low income. We have another type of benefit which is called an in-kind benefit. So for Medicaid, for example, you don't receive a check. Nobody gets a check from Medicaid. Well, people don't. People receive the benefit, which is going to be reduced costs for healthcare. So they are getting a good or a service. They don't actually get money. So an in-kind benefit is one that gives the benefit in the form of goods or services. And lastly, we do not have this in the United States. Economists sometimes propose this, and the idea here is a negative income tax. So the idea is that this would supplement the income of low-income workers. In fact, people who fall below a certain threshold would actually not pay any income taxes. They would receive payment from the government. And that would be another method of trying to reduce income inequality and take care of poor people in society. This has been a LaMoney Production.